Hello friends, today we'll be discussing how to configure log shipping on MS SQL Server 2008. So before we start, let's try and understand what is high availability. There are various applications which hit the database for report generation, that is to read the data or to update records or to perform certain manipulations of data on certain record sets. Now each of them need the database to be alive and active for their requests, but due to any natural catastrophical error or system related issues, the server might go down and hence be unable to respond to such requests. On such circumstances, there are certain ways and means actually by which we can make the entire server or the particular database alive and available. They are said to be the high availability options. MS SQL Server has primarily four high availability options, like number one is clustering, which happens on the complete server basis, where the complete server fails over to another automatically when the primary server goes down. Log shipping is the second option, which happens on the database basis, where the complete primary database fails over to secondary database in case of failures. The third is mirroring. This option also fails over the complete database, but it has an automatic failover option, unlike the log shipping, in which case the failover needs to be done manually by the DBA. The last but not the least, the option of replication, which is on the object level for high availability. Here the object, like the data for the tables, are replicated from one server to another by the help of publications and subscriptions. There are various options of replication like transactional, merge, snapshot, and transactional with merge update option. We'll be seeing replication in the later video sessions. This session is completely dedicated to log shipping. So let's try and understand what log shipping is and what it can do for us. Log shipping with as far as log shipping is concerned, we can ship the .trn transactional files for the primary database. This is log shipped to the secondary database configured for log shipping, and once this is backed up and copied to the secondary databases, they are restored onto the secondary database. This helps us to keep the secondary DB in sync with the primary DB. The primary purpose of keeping them in sync is that in case of failure, whenever the primary DB is unable to respond, we can manually fail over to the secondary DB and make them the primary one for responding to the database requests. Also, one more important point is that the failover for log shipping needs to be done manually, and we can configure multiple secondary servers for log shipping, which is unlike mirroring. In mirroring, we can have only one primary DB for the failover. So let's try and understand how to configure log shipping. As we can see, I have one primary server, two instances of server. This is the primary server for me, and the second instance is the secondary on which I will be configuring log shipping. So I have a database that is ls demo, log shipping demo database. Here in this database there is a table, employee table. Let's try and find out the contents of this employee table. As you can see, the employee table holds 3 records for Keshav, Shalini and Abhishek. So we'll try and configure this database for log shipping. The first step for log shipping is the database whichever we are trying to configure for log shipping should be in full recovery model. So let's validate if how about ls demo database, the options for the recovery model should be full, as you can see. Right. The second is the SQL Server agent. The SQL Server agent for both the primary SQL servers and the secondary SQL Server must be started and running, since all the jobs, that is the backup, copy and restore jobs, will be run by SQL agent for log shipping. So Once this is in place, we can the first step is to take the backup so of the primary database and restore it onto the secondary instance wherever we want the log shipping to be configured. So let me try and take a backup. So let's try and use the facility of compressed backup, which is available in SQL Server 2008. The full backup is done. I will also take the transactional log backup for this database. Add it to the same file. Okay. Once the backup is done, let's restore this database on the secondary instance. From device. As we can see, there are two files for full and transactional log. Let's restore both of them. Right, during restoration there is one simple point to be noted, that there are two options for restoring the database. The one is the restore with no recovery, and the second is restore with standby. Having said that, what I mean by this is, during log shipping we can either configure the database, the secondary databases in with a restore with no recovery option, by which I mean the database will not be accessible and will be in a restoring state throughout the log shipping, and once there is any failover happening manually, it will come back to online state and will start responding when we manually recover the database back. But the difference, we can also configure the log shipping in standby state, by which I mean the database will be in the read-only state. That means during the log shipping, whenever it is occurring, we can also read the data throughout the log shipping. So we can see if the data is in sync or not and onto the secondary database. So let's I'll prefer going with the standby state, so that at least I'm able to read the data. So the restore is complete. As you can see, the database is in standby and read-only format. So let's try and read the data if it is in sync with the primary data. Right, as you can see, all the three records have been replayed and restored. Once this is done, I think we are all set for starting the configuration. The next is the important step for configuring the log shipping. So let's start configuring the log shipping for this database. The first step is transactional log shipping and enabling. I'm enabling the database for log shipping configuration. The backup settings, let's start with this. There are few options which needs to be filled before the backup settings. So right, this is the network path where the backup will be taken. The first thing is, for log shipping, is there is a backup taken. There are three jobs actually. The first job is the backup. The primary SQL agent, the primary instance of SQL Server has a SQL agent job. This is the job that will be created on the SQL agent for primary server, and the functionality for this job is to take the backup of the .trn transactional files and place it over this path. This is the network path, and this is the same path on my system. So here this path, the backups will be kept. So this is the place where the .trn backups will be placed for by this job. The next, also we'll try and create a schedule for this job. Let's keep it to 3 minutes so that we can see the job changes done by the job ASAP. The next is the secondary database configuration. So let's add the secondary. We can have multiple secondary instances for configured for log shipping. So here I'll demonstrate with the second instance installed on my system. The first step is to initialize the secondary database. So here, as you can see, the SQL Server offers help by saying that it can also take a backup of the primary database and restore on the secondary database. So this configuration tool will itself take the backup and restore it if we had not done it the way I have done. I mean, the way I have restored it myself. So but since I have done that, I'll go with the secondary database has already been initialized for this, and I'll move on to the second tab, that is copy files. Once the files or trn files have been backed up, the second step is to bring them onto the secondary server. So here we'll have to specify the path where we want those files to be placed. This is the place where the files will be copied from the primary. So as you can see, I've created two folders, primary and secondary. The first job will back up the files over here, and the second job will copy them onto this place. Right. Let's also this is the SQL agent job, which will do the copy of the .trn files, transaction files. And let's try and create a schedule. I am giving it as 3 minutes. The third and the final job is for restoring those .trn files which have been copied. Now the important point is the SQL Server agent on the secondary instance should be having access on the primary instance, on the primary folder, by which I mean it should be having access onto this primary server, this primary server folder, this folder, because if it doesn't have access on this folder, it will not be able to copy the files from here to the secondary server, and hence the job will fail. So it is important to be sure that it has the access. Now once that's done, the restoration job will this job will actually go and restore the .trn files from the secondary server folder onto the database, and try and keep both of them on sync. This is the last and the final job that will be running. Now this can be done in the standby and no recovery mode, as I have already mentioned, but since we are going with the standby mode, as we want to read the data, so let's select the standby mode and also create a schedule. I am putting it for 5 minutes. So that's our configuration for log shipping.